I think I put NFR announcer. I wrote with a Sharpie NFR announcer 1998 or something like that. And that was my goal. And I looked at that, and that was my visual every day to remind me of where I was going. It was my target. Those people are depending on me. And there's people just like my parents and grandparents and other people that I love and respect that are good, salt of the earth country people that are relying for that relationship and that information. So it makes me step up when sometimes I don't feel like it. We have not been telling our story in agriculture. And that's what I spend a lot of time on in my keynote addresses I want agriculture to wake up to the opportunity that is before us right now. And that is that the rest of the world, for the first time in my lifetime, they want to know about us.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. Today, we got somebody pretty famous on, somebody that we haven't had anybody like this on yet. So, Justin McKee, you know him from the Cowboy Channel, you know him from the rodeos, from behind the microphone. You're seeing him call the shots at the NFR, all that stuff. So, and he's also got a lot of other stuff going on that we're going to get into. But how's it going?
Man, it's going good, especially with that over-the-top introduction right there. I enjoyed that very much, though. Yeah. Thank you.
I haven't had any, thinking back, I don't think we've had any on-air real broadcast professionals on here.
Well, it's just another job, really. Not that big a deal. It's just a lot of times just me and a camera in a lonely studio, so I don't see it as that much of a
I know. That's deal. What doing this, I would think is somewhat similar. Like I'm just, really it's even easier because I'm just talking to somebody else. It's just having a conversation. You're having to do it by yourself, but it's completely, it's hard for me to, and you have a whole clinic on this and stuff, but getting up in front of people, in front of a crowd and stuff, it's a whole different thing than sitting here doing this.
Well, and not only that, but for me, the crowd was always where I leaned on for energy. And when I saw them responding, I guess probably fed my ego and it fed my confidence, and I was able to be more creative and sometimes even funny. But when I went to television, I didn't have that crowd. I didn't have that audience. It was just like this in a two-way conversation, or like now I'm in a studio, sometimes just me and the camera. And I've had to really dig deep on where I'm going to get that same kind of an energy, but it's certainly different.
I think it just, it gets lumped into one category, but they're all different skill sets, really.
Yeah. As I've been able to travel around the country after working with the Cowboy Channel for 5 years and meet literally thousands of people that watch all the time, it's given me a visual of what that audience looks like and how powerful the Cowboy Channel is to their life and how much time we spend together and how they feel like I'm like family because I'm in their home all the time. Kind of freaks me out a little bit, but at the same time, that is so cool. It's very rare and very unique, and I don't take it for granted. And that's what really feeds me when it's just me and the camera, is knowing those people are depending on me. And there's people just like my parents and grandparents and other people that I love and respect that are good, salt of the earth country people that are relying for that relationship and that information. So it makes me step up when sometimes I don't feel like it.
Yeah, that's cool. We always get started, like sometimes in life you go backwards before you go forward. So let's start at the back, kind of your background, how you got to where you are today.
Well, I grew up in the livestock business. My dad was a cattle order buyer, and he owned a couple of livestock auctions, and so I was always at an auction. And matter of fact, I'm double bred. I tell people I'm double bred cow trader, I guess, because my mom's dad was a cow buyer. I never met him, but at any rate, I grew up in the sale ring and in the back pens. And
where was that at?
In South Coffeyville, Oklahoma.
Okay.
And Parsons, Kansas. I literally grew up on the Oklahoma line. Our place was on both sides of the line. Went to Kansas State in-state tuition, and got to go to Oklahoma State later on in-state tuition too. So, but Yeah, I grew up in the auction business, so I was always fascinated with that microphone. And I grabbed a hold of that thing when I was 2 or 3 years old and knew where that on switch was, and the amplification of my voice over that PA system the first time had me at hello.
Had you hooked, huh?
It had me hooked, man. It had me hooked. I'm still hooked.
Yeah. So was that, did you always know that's kind of what you wanted to pursue? Did you see, I guess it evolved kind of into the broadcasting and all that?
It did. I was ate up with rodeo. My folks were not involved in rodeo, but they went to rodeos. And so I was 3 years old and wanted to be a bull rider. And by the time I was 4, Dad bought me a practice bull. Now, what kind of a parent would do that? I mean, he had a hump and horns and model face, and he was fully mature, but he was a dwarf. Just ran across like a miniature bucking bull. And
you never know what a cow trader is going to run across.
I know. You never know what they're going to come home with. Exactly. So I got to start my bull riding career at 4, and I just stayed ate up with that. I'd have got on bodacious, at a very young age. There was, of course, no mutton busting at that time. And I just snuck off to every little steer riding junior rodeo I could. And so I was ate up with that. And Joel Edmondson worked for my dad, and he went on to win the 1982 World Championship in steer wrestling during my childhood, actually. So I would have been 10, 12 years old when he won the World Championship. So when I was 7, 8, 9, he was actually working for my dad. So he taught me how to swing a rope, and another guy that managed my dad's place and still does the cattle side of things. His name is Phil Allen. He was just a good ranch cowboy and taught me how to rope. And so between wanting to compete and be a cowboy and I wanted to be an auctioneer. So back to the microphone, that's where I thought I would make my living, was behind the mic as an auctioneer.
And did you think, like at that point where you're like, I'm going to go make a living as an auctioneer and still rodeo and be involved in all that? Yes.
But as I got to competing at rodeos, I got to hearing some really bad announcers. And I had a great model. I had a great model as an announcer, because the legendary Clem McSpadden, which for those people that are listening in Oklahoma, they know exactly who I'm talking about. Outside of Oklahoma these days, maybe not. But Clem was the general manager of the NFR all the time. It was in Oklahoma City. He was nearly governor of Oklahoma, and a great rancher. He's the nephew of Will Rogers. And Clem was, in my opinion, still is the greatest rodeo announcer that I've ever known. And he announced our hometown rodeo in Coffeyville and Veneta, Oklahoma, and all the rodeos around there. So I got to listen to him a lot. And then I showed up at his office one day, and just my first year, maybe my senior year of high school. And I knew then our FFA chapter put on a junior rodeo. And so I was president of the FFA chapter, so I got to announce the rodeo. And soon after that, I think, is when I landed in his office in Chelsea, Oklahoma, and said, Clem, I want to be a rodeo announcer.
What was it like when you got started on the microphone, either announcing or auctioneering? Like, did it come pretty natural, or did you have to work at it?
I had to work at auctioneering. I really had to work at it, and I didn't work hard enough. Fortunately, I got sidetracked with the announcing thing, but the crowd, what I learned from auctioneering was how to read a crowd. And that is so important. I think it's one of the greatest assets that I brought into rodeo announcing, was because I wanted to be able to look at the crowd and know what information they needed next. So I wanted to bring it. I just wanted to keep bringing that information that they maybe weren't even aware of, that they were thinking about. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to bring it to them. So I just wanted to continue that conversation of information and education, maybe a little bit of entertainment. And that takes work as well. And I'm still working on it today.
Do you see a big difference, like announcing rodeos going to a little, like your hometown, probably mainly ag-based, small town rodeos? They probably know a lot, maybe know the people in it, know all the events, stuff like that. Is it kind of different with that crowd versus a bigger city where it's a lot of city people there that don't.
Oh, it's not only different, it's maybe the complete opposite. Yeah, you definitely have to know where you are and who you're talking to be able to communicate properly and to sell our sport and to engage and involve the audience in different ways. So, yeah, radically different. Great question.
Yeah, I would think it would be. That'd be a whole skill set in itself.
It is, yes, yes.
So you mentioned you went to college. What did you go to college for?
Animal science. My dad was on the livestock judging team at Kansas State when he was there at Manhattan, Kansas, and so that was the goal for me. And we did win the state livestock judging contest in FFA in high school. So all roads were leading me to junior college. So you could judge twice. You could judge in junior college and then go to major college. But after I graduated my senior year, got elected state FFA president, and everything changed. I went from production side to the leadership side, I guess you could say, in agriculture.
And through that, were you still like? Did you have a purpose with going to school, or were you still like, I'm still just gonna try to go be a rodeo announcer? And
yeah, no, it took me all that time to kind of figure things out. I, as a matter of fact, for the first 3 years, I was still majoring in animal science. But during those 3 years, I met people like Bronk Rumford, who was a stock contractor at our college rodeo at K-State. And as I was helping put on the rodeo, I was also announcing some of the sponsors and such. And I told Bronk that I wanted to be a rodeo announcer. And he heard me work, and he really encouraged me. And of course, Bronk is grown up in the business and one of the most respected men in professional rodeo. He was a contestant before he carried on his family's legacy as a stock contractor. And he's just a great human and one of my mentors that taught me the ins and outs of announcing. And then my first rodeos was with his company when I got my PRCA card. And we still try to talk quite a bit, and he's been a huge influence.
What did that look like when you got your PRCA card? Do you just get in with the contractor? Are they the ones in charge of hiring that out, or? Well,
it was, and I know that I went to Bob Tallman's announcer clinic at the Cow Palace in San Francisco there before I got my PRCA card. Right when I started announcing, I announced amateur rodeos for 2 years before I got my PRCA card. So I went to his broadcast clinic, and he said, don't get your card until you know you have somebody that is willing to hire you for several rodeos. It's not worth the time and the money and you don't want to cross over. You don't want to mix amateur with professional. He said, you're good enough that you need to, when you go pro, you need to go pro, even though if that means leaving some money on the table and not going to some amateur rodeos. So, I wanted to make sure I had pretty much a full book. And Bronk had several small rodeos in Kansas and Oklahoma, which is where I was from. So that worked out good. And then Bob Tallman, he just took me under his wing after going to his clinic. When I showed up at that first convention, and that's where you go meet the committees and try to get your bookings for all rodeo contract personnel. I went to that first convention the year before I went pro, and he told Boyd Polhamus, and between the two of them, I think they've worked about 50 NFRs as announcers. And Boyd's about 3 or 4 years older than me, and he had already had his card and knew all the people. And Bob was busy. He said, Boyd, you take Justin over there to that convention, and you introduce him to every single person he needs to know. And so he spent the day introducing me to every stock contractor and every small committee and sponsors. And so Bob Tallman, Bronk Rumford got me started. Bob Tallman set me up. Mm-hmm. And then I got all their leftovers. He told Hadley Barrett and Randy Corley and Phil Gardenhires, hey, I got a kid. If you're double booked, I got a kid that can handle it, and I want to take care of him. And he did, and he still does today.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's huge in any industry, walk of life, anything. Like sometimes people see the people at the top as competition, when you're getting started out. But usually if you can go get around them and try to get mentored by them, connect with them, network with them. I mean, there's levels, and then there's stuff that like they don't want to do. They're gonna stuff that you'd be at the bottom, you'd love to have, and they're like, I don't have time to do that, or I don't want to do it, or whatever, and they're gonna give you work that way from the top, and it's not. I don't remember. There's that quote about the people from the bottom think the top is competition, but at the top it's just collaboration. DX Trailer Sales is based out of Lubbock, Texas, and it's definitely not just a trailer dealership. If you are involved in the Western way of life, and if you're listening to this show, you probably are, they have something you need. From trailers for a day working cowboy to a full-time cattle hauler to hay trailers for a farmer or rancher to arena drags, rope and chutes, and feeders for the rodeo cowboy or cowgirl. They also deal in every kind of hay any of your animals could ever need. Literally anything you need for farming, ranching, or rodeoing, they have something for you. And it's gonna be at a super affordable price. Besides all that, everyone you deal with there is super friendly and helpful. We just got new custom flatbeds built for our pickups, and I also got probably the coolest trailer you've ever seen built. And you can stay tuned for a video we're gonna do, and it's gonna show all of that and some more of their products also. So check out DX Trailer Sales on Facebook or dxtrailers.com. It seems like, I mean, to me now, in anything, the more I talk to people and the more I study stuff, it's like your network and who you know and all that. Like you said, you went and met all those people. Yeah. You had some really good mentors, and that kind of set you up for a good career, a good start to your career.
Yeah, it's. I think at the root of it, it's unselfishness, and it's confidence in who you are and your position, and faith. A lot of times, it's faith, and a combination of those three qualities is a pretty good place to be, and that's where Bob Tallman has lived his whole life, and so I'm thankful that I was kind of able to fall under his umbrella.
Yeah. Was it overwhelming for you? Like you said, you were meeting everybody.
Oh my goodness. So that rascal threw me in the fire. He's like, I'm going to throw him in the deepest water I can. He'll either learn to swim or he'll sink, and I'll be rid of him. Mm-hmm. And Bull Riders Only was a predecessor to the PBR. And Bob Tallman and Gary LeFew were the TV personalities for Bull Riders Only, and it was huge. They were packing arenas, and this was new, and they had resources and sponsors and business people running it, and all the bull riders were in the right place, and the right bulls, the gunslingers and bodaciouses were coming along, and Playboy, Skoll, and Cowtown, and all. It was just a perfect mix of superstars all over the place, and it was going like crazy. And then he just plugged me in to those huge building events where Boyd Polhamus couldn't go be the live announcer, where he was double booked. And I was so far over my head. And I'll never forget, because he let me stay in his room. Not just the first weekend, but maybe every weekend. And I'll probably still do it today. Just laying there in that same room with Bob Tallman, trying to go to sleep at night, going, I cannot believe I am in the same motel room with Bob Tallman. I cannot believe I'm working this event that he's doing TV. We'd go out to eat with bull riders or bullfighters. Too long a list to name any of them. Every time he moved around, I would be with him, and every time I got to pinch myself. I can't believe that I'm in this circle. Yeah, it was like a dream. Still is, though, today. I got to admit, I mean, being around him, it hasn't changed much. And being around anytime you're around your heroes, it's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I've been real fortunate to be in this business and be around all my heroes and then get to know them on a personal level. To know that I knew Larry Mahan on a personal level still is just, I can't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is.
What is the work part of that look like, or what did it look like when you were getting started on the announcer side? Is it something like, can you practice for that at all? Are you having to study the events, the towns, the contestants, all that stuff? What is like you're actually working during the perf, but like, what does it look like the other times? I would assume there's some behind the scenes.
Yeah. So I pulled out an ad for the NFR out of the Western Horseman or something, and I put it on my mirror in my bedroom. I'm still living at home, so very young. And I think I put NFR announcer. I wrote with a Sharpie, NFR announcer, 1998 or something like that, and that was my goal. And I looked at that, and that was my visual every day to remind me of where I was going. It was my target. But every time I looked at it, I knew that I would have to be better than or as good as Bob Tallman and Boyd Polhamus and Randy Corley. And so I'm scratching my head going, man, that's not likely to happen. So how in the world can I use my unique gift to get to that level? And not that those guys aren't hard workers, but I just knew growing up in the livestock auction business and working 12, 15, sometimes 24 hours a day, going as hard as you can. And my dad was a hard-driven man, very driven. And I grew up, even as a kid, going to bed at night, I could hear the trucks rolling in at 2 and 3 in the morning, and I could hear him sorting cattle at, all through the night after night after night. I mean, he slept a couple hours a night, and he took a nap on Sunday, but I mean, he just didn't sleep, and he was just very driven. And so that was my model there too. So I knew I had to outwork him, or try to. I had to bring that element. That was the best asset that I had, was I can go and I can keep going. And so I'm just going to dig, and I'm going to work, and I'm going to study, and I'll do whatever it takes. And so that was kind of my attitude.
And what does that look like? Man,
that was like driving all the way to Pretty Prairie, Kansas, just to shake Hadley Barrett's hand, or driving to Fort Smith to shake Phil Gardenhire's hand, not to be a nuisance, but I just wanted to keep showing up and let them see that I was very respectful of them, and that I admired them, and that let them see the seriousness that I had, the intent that I had to be great. And then if that worked into a conversation, wonderful. But if it didn't, then I'd drive that 5 or 6 hours back. And it was announcing a lot of slack events or small events that I didn't necessarily want to be at or have on my resume. Then it was just a lot of digging in terms of some creative writing and research. And we had a agriculture newspaper where I grew up called Farm Talk newspaper, came out every week, and Baxter Black was, of course, his article was in there every week. And I kept seeing the metaphors and how he would make something that was just a so-so story. He would make it so colorful by talking about, he would talk about rodeo every now and then. The one that I think is still the most catchy in my mind, his metaphors and similes. He said, describing a bull ride one time, he said, that guy stuck to that bull like roadkill skunk on a radial tire. Man, so I really started studying how I could make what I was talking about more memorable and more colorful. And so just kept digging, and just I kept files every time I would read an article that would explain the cowboy world that I could connect with and that I could relay to a crowd. I would just keep those files and of course paper files back then, a real file folder.
Yeah. Do you think, like in my thoughts and what I've learned is, and Alex Ramosi talks a lot about this, you think of a sales guy or we usually call them like a bullshitter. They're able to just naturally go in a room and light it up and meet everybody in there and make people laugh and stuff, and be, some people say, charismatic.
Yeah.
But like Alex Ramosi, he breaks it down. He says, what is that? You can't tell somebody to go be charismatic. So people think it's either natural or it's not. Like, I can't be charismatic because I wasn't born that way. But he's like, what does it take to be that? It's, what is it? Like some jokes, you have a smile on your face, you walk around, meet everybody, you get good at storytelling, and breaks it down to tactical steps. Do you think, just you telling that story, you look at Baxter Black, and he's funny, you know, and very comical and charismatic, I'd say. I've never met him in person, but from the videos and articles I've read. Did you see that as like, did you think you were naturally that way a little bit? Or were you like, I can learn this skill to be more like that and learn how to use words like that?
You know, FFA really launched me in that area. And when I became a state FFA president, I learned that I did have that natural gift to go into a room of people. And then the training through being a state officer, as soon as we were elected, we went into a 5-day Dale Carnegie course. And I learned very quickly that it's not about me and how we should invest in other people. That is the key to great leadership. And so I started applying that principle as an FFA member. And then that was one of the major keys as I started into the announcing business. I wouldn't say that I was as naturally gifted as Baxter Black or Bob Tallman or Boyd Polhamus or any of those people, or Corley. No, but I knew in my circle, because I'd seen it in small, tiny circles in FFA, that I was. And so I guess I knew that maybe I could grow that into a major league type of a personality, in terms of being charismatic. So I knew I had that potential maybe to get there, but I never allowed myself on their level.
Yeah. And you brought up something else that was really cool. It sounded like you were willing to go backwards before you went forwards. You were going to take all the crappy jobs nobody wanted, go spend your time and your money to go and not make anything, to go do some of those jobs or be around the right people and stuff like that. And it, like, a lot of people aren't willing to do that, it seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge part of success, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to my work ethic and what I saw growing up, and I didn't know any better. And so I'm just going to push hard. And I've always been very competitive. So you kind of throw that aspect in there too. I want to win. I want to win bad. And so those two drives are pretty powerful motivators. That's good fuel. That's a good mix.
And I think we see a lot of people that have natural ability, you know, they kind of take it for granted and don't work hard and push themselves. And then you see them become mediocre. I've seen it a bunch, just like in rodeo and roping and stuff. You see a kid you're like, this guy's never going to make it. And then, but I guess they work really hard.
Exactly.
And then they come back, you know, you see them a couple years later or something, and they're kicking everybody's ass. And it's
right.
And I see it in business. I see it in athletics and all these different aspects of these guys that are just driven to put in the hours. And the best I've heard it explained is like, you see a guy that's up here. Well, if you want to catch that guy or be better than that guy, he's already developed all the skills, you know, he's way ahead of you. So if you're going to catch up, you're going to have to work twice as hard as he works.
That's right.
Before you ever catch up. And then hopefully that guy slows down a little bit and you can keep working hard. And
that's the cycle of life. That's the cycle of business life right there.
How long were you in it until you felt like you were catching some breaks and you were like, this is going to work out? Superior Steel Sales is based out of Carthage, Missouri, but they ship pipe and fencing supplies and livestock equipment across the U.S. Like many of the businesses we talk about on here, the owner, Matt Bell, started out specializing in building pipe fence and livestock pens and saw an opportunity to supply ranchers and contractors all across the country with quality livestock equipment, fencing, and corral supplies. They carry a full line of pipe fence, corral materials, as well as their own line of livestock equipment. Superior Standard. No matter where you are in the country, if you're in the ranching and livestock business, you need to check them out. They probably have something for your operation and a growing dealer network across the country. And of course, like most of the companies I tell you all about, you're going to be dealing with great people that'll take great care of you. Check out their website at superiorsteelsales.com or their Facebook, Superior Steel Sales.
I was catching breaks before I got started. That's a crazy thing about it. Even before that, Sam Howery was in the IPRA Association. He did the same thing for me the 2 years I did amateur rodeos that Bob did when I got my PRCA card. And I can't believe the break. I mean, I'm the luckiest guy in the world too. I mean, you throw that in with a work ethic and competitive spirit and some luck.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So the PBR was starting. And Tough Edelman heard me announce a PRCA rodeo, and he invited me to start announcing the PBRs. So I was double dipping. I was doing some bull riders onlys and some PBRs for a year. And at the end of that year, Tough had me come to his hotel suite in Las Vegas, and he sat me down. He said, dude, you're going to have to choose. No more double dipping. And against the advice of Bob Tallman and Boyd Plahamus, I chose the PBR, and that was a pretty good move. Randy Bernard ran the PBR. After 7 years of live announcing, he moved me to TV, and then he worked with Patrick Gotch at RFD TV after that, and so that's when I started working for RFD TV and the American, various things way before the Cowboy Channel. So talk about things falling together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and did you, when you were faced with that, I mean, that was a big choice. Like you said, your mentors were telling you not to do it, not to go to the PBR. What made you go that way?
I think, I don't know if I've even focused on that too much. I think it was because I had the first seat. I knew I could have the first seat with the PBR in the announcer stand. And Boyd had the first seat. He had the first option. And at that time, all the major stars had crossed over into the PBR by that time. That year was a year of transition. And the only one that didn't was Terry Don West. And he was kind of late to the party. So he stayed there. But all the other stars were with the PBR, and just knowing that they had signed the contract, and knowing what their vision was, and then watching some resources develop. I wasn't for sure, but it just looked like, I mean, you got to have the superstars. If you're going to have the best riders, and if you're going to advertise the best riders and the best bulls, you got to have the best riders.
Yeah.
And by that time, they had the best riders. I mean, Tough Edelman alone, I mean, he had the capacity of all the rest of the stars put together, if that makes sense. And he was president. So that was a lot of weight in me determining where to go, was him.
And then also starting out, like, I know it's evolved over the years, but starting out, was it the pro rodeos is just a madhouse, it seems like, in the summertime especially. I mean, you're traveling across the country, and lots of travel, lots of time on the road. The PBRs, it seemed like they have less events. Was it like that then? Were you going to be able to make maybe the same amount of money and work less, basically? Yeah,
exactly. Because I was still focused on trying to be a competitor. And I married into a steer roping family, single steer roping, jerk down, if you will. And my wife's uncle was a world champion, Schultz Webster. He won 5 world titles, and her dad was a PRCA steer roper and calf roper and bulldogger. So I still had big dreams of qualifying for the national finals in steer roping. And I knew I could get to most of the steer ropings during the week and then go work Friday, Saturday. And I thought that would fit my ranch as well, because I still had ranching interests. So instead of being gone all the time, I could be home and practice and fly out on weekends. Yeah.
Yeah, seems like a lot of potential there. I mean,
it was perfect for me.
I'm sure a lot of people saw a lot of risk, but it sounds like a pretty good deal to me. And it turned out to be a good deal.
Turned out to be good. And then I was able to work some bigger rodeos into it. And now I wouldn't even announce a bull riding today. I pretty much refuse to, because I've announced 1,000 lifetimes of bull riding. I'm not sour on it.
Yeah.
I'm just done with bull riding. I want to see some broncs. I want to see some dust. I don't want any of these clean arenas and these Marriotts and airports. Man, I want to drive and drive all night to get there, and I want it to be hot and dusty when I get out.
Well, we're in that time of year.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
What was the transition like? We kind of talked about a little bit before, but like you talked about at the PBRs where you transitioned into TV. What was that like? You know, having to learn that new skill and kind of be a little different there.
Well, once again, I got thrown into the fire immediately, an inferno. My first broadcast for the PBR was live on NBC, not NBC Sports, not Fox Sports. I'm talking about live on NBC in Austin, Texas. And I'm working with Tuff Hedeman and George Michael from the George Michael Sports Machine, who was nationally recognized as perhaps many awards, Emmy Awards, and maybe the most respected sports broadcaster. Kind of he had his show before ESPN. So, but he was fascinated with bull riding, and he's the one that followed Lane Frost around, and he was part of the movie 8 Seconds. But George Michael was on my first broadcast. We were live on NBC, and so, man, I could not fail, because failure would mean the end of it all. Because when you fail in front of that audience, you have failed in front of the whole world, the whole cowboy world at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what was at stake. And fear can be a great motivator too, I guess. It's not my preferred motivator, but somehow I survived.
Yeah.
And so that transition was pretty steep.
Start at the top.
Man.
That fear, what did that, did you prepare more? Did you do anything different? What did that look like going into it? You knew you couldn't fail, so. Yeah,
and that's where I perform the best. I've always been a gamer. I need, the more pressure, the better I'm going to be in most situations. And so, certainly in TV, if I'm going to be at a high level, I've got to figure out a way to get there. And so I somehow was able to do that. But, the thing that was kind of missing was, and I recognized this early, was just the storytelling aspect. There was some Gary LeFew, thank God he brought in the technical side of things and a language that we had never, that fans had never heard before. And that was such a great asset. And Donnie Gay had done that. But Donnie was such a good mix of humor, and Donnie, like Tuff Hedeman, he didn't have to. He just be Donnie. I mean, because he had the personality, had the credential, and had the respect, and so obviously I couldn't be either one of those guys. So I had to find my niche, and Tuff Hedeman is on there. So I'm not the host because George Michael's the host, and I'm not the expert because Tuff Hedeman's the expert. So I got to find out, why am I there? And Randy Bernard's vision for me was to become that storyteller, to know what the audience needed, whether it's the bull or the rider or the situation or the money or what, just to read the play. He put me in there to quarterback. He saw that. And he said, I want you to be able to connect with these people who don't understand what's going on here. Paint the picture, paint the picture, paint the picture. So that was another huge step in my progress, an enormous amount of enlightenment into an area that I'd never thought about before, and into an area that really nobody had stepped into, to become that storyteller. And the greatest storyteller of all time is the guy I mentioned early in our conversation, Clem McSpadden, Will Rogers' nephew, the greatest storyteller of my time. I had him as a mentor. So I started, as I realized my role, I started watching Clem a little more. I started asking him more questions about how he went about telling stories. I started reading books different, and I started picking books different because I wanted to know how those people were telling the story of the West.
And was that what you were already kind of doing with the announcing, or was this like just when he told you that, where you're like, this all makes sense, what I'm supposed to do?
Well, I was doing it as an announcer, but it was a combination of taking care of the nuts and bolts, and you, as an announcer, you're just pretty much introducing the next guy and the next ride and the time or the score on the ride or the run. And I was just able to, and I wasn't the first guy to do it. I mean, obviously, Bob and Hadley were great storytellers as well, but I don't know if I ever recognized that then. But then I recognized what they had been doing at that time too. So I started seeing how they were working great stories in the conversation. And the thing about great stories on TV, unlike when you are announcing a rodeo, you might have 2 or 3 or 10 minutes at a rodeo to tell a story. And you could take one story and mix it in and out of the conversation for 2.5 hours of the performance. In TV, you need to take that 5 or 10 minute conversation and say it in 10 seconds. That's what I learned from our executive producer at NBC Sports. The head guy at NBC was producing these PBR events. And he said, I need you to tell me a 10-minute story in 10 seconds. Nobody really had done that.
A whole nother task.
Yeah. But there was a niche that I could get into.
Mm-hmm.
And that excited me knowing, okay, this is new territory.
And so to get into that, like, were you having to kind of write this stuff down, or were you practicing in the mirror, or
yeah,
how do I condense, this is what I want to say, but how do I cut all the fluff out and make it still captivating, but fit in this little box? Yeah.
Again, going back to research and just working and just reading and just going through every article. And then, that highlighter, a highlighter is one of my favorite tools. Being able to highlight this line or that paragraph and then filing it away. Old school style, a paper file, and then knowing how to go to get that, or going through that file and just committing it to memory. But it was basically a lot of thievery. It was, Kendra Santos, one of the greatest writer of all time in Western sports. Every article that she wrote that ended up in the Rodeo Sports News, the Western Horseman, man, I was highlighting those great points that she brought out, and yeah, it was just one theft after another.
Yeah. And there's a saying about that. I'll mess it up, but it's something like good artists copy and great artists steal.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Somebody really famous said that. I don't remember who it was, but
and I try to give them credit the first time.
Right.
And then the second time, I can say whatever I want. And then the third time is I tend to introduce those phrases as like I've always said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For years I've said.
Yeah, and that kind of just goes back, though. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Go back and lean on your mentors, the people that have done it before. And you're able to go back when you're doing that and see a whole conglomeration of people, of Western journalists, of announcers, of broadcasters, all this, put it all together, and then use some phrases or whatever. And I'm sure by the third time you say it, you've made it your own.
Mine. Yeah. Exactly.
You've kind of changed it around.
Yes.
So but you're able to go back. I mean, we say stealing or copying or something, but eventually it may use it to make it your own. But there's something to be said about that, about just everybody wants to reinvent the wheel. I got to do it my own way. But it usually starts by doing it the way that's already proven.
That's right.
And then putting your spin on it.
That's it. Yeah, good stuff. Exactly.
So you're on TV now, you're at the PBR, and then you said it kind of evolved. How long was it before the American came around? Was that, and you kind of shifted?
So I went to TV in early 2000s and was there for 10 years. So 2010, the American came on 2014. So the last couple of years, like in 09 and 10, I may be off a year, but we'll say 09 and 10, I would fly every week. Justin McBride and I would do PBR Now at the RFD TV studios on RFD. And so that was the earliest part of my relationship with Patrick Gotch and RFD TV was way back in 09, 08, 09. And it was a fabulous studio. It was such a big deal to go there. It was over the top. They had a star on the dressing room. First of all, there's a dressing room. There's a star with a nameplate, and it had my name on it, which I got to dig that picture up because I know I took a lot of pictures of it. I couldn't believe it. But at any rate, that was the beginning. And then 2014 was the beginning of the American, and that's when we really started working together for that broadcast.
And did you see? Were you kind of involved in the Cowboy Channel? Did you see like there needs to be something like the Cowboy Channel. If you didn't hear Ben Hale's story on episode 69, you need to check it out. He's been earning trust in the cattle industry one handshake at a time since 1995 at Western Livestock. Western Livestock is proud to be family owned and operated now with 5 locations: Oklahoma City, Woodward, Comanche, and Waurika, Oklahoma, and also Knoxville, Iowa. They're proud to do business the Western way with honesty, integrity, and a handshake that still means something. You can join them ringside or stream their sales from wherever you are. Western Livestock, where a handshake is their word, cattle are money, and timing is everything. If you're looking to buy or sell, contact Ben Hale at 940-631-BEEF. That's 940-631-2333. Check them out on Facebook or westernlivestock.com.
Yeah, in a dream world, but I didn't think that would be reality. Randy Bernard, again, was the guy who had the idea and who really pushed Patrick Gotch to develop the Cowboy Channel. And he was using the success of the American and our broadcast and the growth of new fans and to convince Patrick that this could work. And so I left the PBR at the end of 2010 and basically had been on the road almost 20 years, and my whole goal was to go home and make a living ranching. And I'd put together properties and leases and cow numbers and put together a great preconditioning place at our house. And
were you in Oklahoma then?
In Oklahoma, yeah, right where we grew up. My wife and I grew up in kind of the same area. But we had built a place and been there for, since 2000. We built that place in 2000. And so I was ready to go home, and from 11, 12, 13, 14, on through 19, I guess, so about 7 years, announcing a few things, but mainly ranching. And that was the goal, was to work hard for 20 years on the road and then come home and ranch. But I could see it developing through the American and through the conversation, because Randy Bernard went to work full-time for Patrick. And so I kept hearing rumblings of something happening. And then in 2019, the studio at the stockyards started to come together. And by July, Joe Beaver and I did all 10 rounds of Cheyenne. That was the first broadcast. It went to RFD TV, but that was kind of the beginning. That was the first step of the real Cowboy Channel, was a studio. He invested in the studio and the office space at the stockyards. And then after that broadcast, Patrick called me and he said, okay, he said, I want you to come full-time. That we're going to do this Cowboy Channel thing. I said, full-time? I said, no, I'm living the dream here. I got an office and we're up on a hill and I can see all the traps. I can see the whole place from my office, and it was new. Built a new office and bought different pieces that was connecting to me. And thanks. I didn't think it'd work anyway, but no thanks. And then he called me a couple of months later and he said, I want to revisit this conversation about you working for the Cowboy Channel. He said, I just signed. He said, nobody knows this, but he said, I just signed the PRCA to a 7-year exclusive. We're going to broadcast all the PRCA rodeos like we did Cheyenne. And I said, you got my attention. So one thing led to another, and we started January 1, 2020, and office was open, studio was fully completed and done, and I was driving 6 hours from Northeast Oklahoma to Fort Worth every week. Or he would stop by in his jet and pick me up at Bartlesville, and we'd fly down to the airport there in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. But anyway, that was the beginning. Then COVID hit, and he shut things down for 2 months, and then we cracked back out at Cave Creek, Arizona in May 2020, and we've been going full steam ever since. Of course, we lost him a year ago, unexpected death, and now we've been bought out by Teton Ridge. Mm-hmm. So,
and what was your role in the? I want to go back in a minute and visit about the ranching. We kind of skipped over all that throughout the years, but But your roles in the Cowboy Channel starting out, was it broadcast personality, or were you going to the rodeos? Was it a mixture? Was it?
It was a mix. Yeah, just host. I'm going to host the events, whether it's in person at the event or in the studio. His model was actually, we're going to take those live feeds that you're going to see on the big screen. Those committees are going to hire somebody to bring the big screen in, the shooters to do it. Let's just take that stream that they're creating anyway, and let's dress it up with somebody in the studio that is going to be live and going to be some consistency and have a sports center type look and feel to it, and be the headquarters of all these different rodeos. And his big vision was we'd be just bouncing around from rodeo to rodeo. And we did a little bit of that, and hopefully that kind of went away, and hopefully that's coming back with Teton, where we can actually be jumping all over like red zone, like in the NFL or college football.
I remember watching that. You're like, last night I was watching Sisters, but it used to be like, I don't remember the rodeos going on, but like we're Sisters, and then
Vernal was last night.
Vernal, like we're gonna go to steer wrestling at Vernal,
exactly.
And then we're back to the team roping over here.
You know, we tried that, but people just couldn't keep up. They just got confused. So the response that he got after we tried that was just stick to one rodeo and put the rest on the app, which that's kind of what he went with after we tried the jumping around. So I love the spontaneity, the unexpected. I love the jumping around.
Yeah.
That was great because there was just more stories going on, and that was a lot of fun. I hope we get to go back to it. I really like that. But we got to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I would think, that being so new, it's going to take years of testing. You always need to be testing anyway. ESPN's still testing.
Great point.
Well, let's go back to the ranching. What was ranching? What was the role? You said there was a gap there where you were doing it full time. What did that look like before, though? And then what did that evolve into? Like while you were on the road, was there still a ranching operation at all? Or
No, I was always scrambling and trying to build that up. And the funny thing about it was my biggest part of my ranching was bucking cows, because I was in the game. I was right in the middle of the game. And I had resources. My friends were the greatest breeders. And then when I got to be on TV, they would let me breed to whatever bull I wanted to. That way I wouldn't forget their bull.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful system. Everybody won. And so I went from just a backyard bunch of buck and bred cows to a pretty high level set of cows pretty quick, and made some good trades, and very much enjoyed the adrenaline aspect that those kind of cows. What people don't realize, when you're raising bucking bulls, that their mamas have got to be hot. They have got to be aggressive.
Yeah.
And I actually enjoyed that. I didn't enjoy hauling so many people to the emergency room that we ended up all the time. But at any rate, it was very lucrative.
Yeah.
Because that was I got in on the ground floor. I rode that thing up and got out. Oh, man. I got out about the same time I got out of the PBR, and then went back into beef cows in 2011. Yeah. Yeah,
the bucking cows, I worked at the Dublin sale barn, so we'd get Boyd and Floyd's, and I don't remember, there's several producers around there, and they'd bring some of their coal bucking cows in and their coal calves and stuff like that, and they're just wild as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And I asked Dustin one time, I was like, how do y'all handle these things? He said, we just get them up twice a year. Nobody messes with them the rest of the time.
Yeah, that's about right. But the thing about this, I think people will find this interesting, and I think you handle buffalo the same way. You got to set things up where it's their idea, or at least they think it's their idea. You're not going to force them into doing anything.
Yeah. You got to make them think.
Whether you're gathering or sorting, it's all, they've got to do it. You've just got to modify and move with them.
And we ranched a lot of those bucking cows. People I've had some myself. I've still got a few of them. And then a lot of guys at home, like to turn out those cheap cows. And I mean, I remember buying some of those cows. You could buy them for like $200.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
When the market was down.
Right.
But they would usually be wild, but we'd turn them out and we didn't care because we had the resources. We gather everything with horse and dogs and stuff. And usually they gentle down a little bit and you could handle them that way. But once you got in the pens, they may be a little wild. But
right.
They're good cows. I mean, they're so hardy. You could turn them out on brush. And basically they're meant to be hardy. They're some kind of crossed up between like a longhorn and a brimmer. So two of the hardiest breeds out there.
Exactly.
So you got out of that and then you transitioned. What did you go with after that once you got out of the bucking business?
Man, I was also racing roping cattle. So I actually put some beef bulls on some Corianis and keeping that cross, that F1, which made spectacular cows.
Mm-hmm.
Spectacular cows. They'd weigh 900 to 1,000 and they'd raise a 500, 550, sometimes a 600-pound calf. Some of those little cows would raise look to be at 650 or 7. They'd be as big as their mama.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was the most practical way to make real money until I went to feeding them and realizing that their conversion was not very good.
Not as efficient.
Not as efficient. So then I got the feeling, like, oh, I don't want anybody else to end up with these either. So I got out of it because I didn't want to sell a product to somebody that I didn't want either. So I just started moving into, I just tried to gather up as many, put together I bought a lot of rebreeds, honestly, which, as you probably know, a lot of times doesn't work, and it didn't. For those of you that are listening, just get a great cow that breeds early in her life and in her cycle and in the season, and don't get that rebreed system going. That's all I bought was rebreed cows. And that was pretty painful, especially in the market in the late teens, the middle. Well, 14 to 15 was good. Yeah. I only got one of those years because I thought I'd feed. That was in 2014. So I thought, well, that was easy. Let's just make them big in 15 and then a tank before I got them gone. But I learned a really important lesson there.
I remember we thought it was crazy then, and then it tanked, and now we're back at the top of the market again. So
you know what though, life's funny. That was just devastating to me at that time, and man, it hurt bad, and until recently. I mean, I was still agonizing over that. I would still think back with the horror that was, but. You know what I did this week? I bought LRPs on my baby calves, my spring calves now. I bought them, those LRPs, livestock risk protection position, for a calf I'm going to market next April. So my calf crop is already locked in at the highest level in the history of the cattle business. Why? I don't know how anybody would not lock in. I mean, it costs $100 a head to sell an animal, $300 a head higher than I've ever sold one before. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah,
sorry, I don't mean that, but if 15 hadn't have happened, I would not be as intentional in my livestock protection in my business today. Mm-hmm. And it has that year retrained me to have a business plan and to stick with it no matter what.
Yeah, all the setbacks always teach you a lesson. If you can survive it. Yeah. Same deal. I don't remember when it was when I bought my first the first thing I did when I got my place was bought a set of heifers and calved them out and sold the majority of them and made really good money. And then that was probably like in April or May. And I found an opportunity to go buy some more that had already calved, some more pairs for way cheaper than what I just sold some for. And I was like, hell yeah. So I went and put all these together. Didn't have the grass for it, but I figured I'd flip them real fast. Well, then it got really dry. And then I ended up feeding them and trying to come out of it and all that. And I learned probably should have just sold them and just took the little bit of loss.
Yeah, your first loss is usually your best loss.
Instead of prolonging it through the year there. So there's lots of lessons. And there's lots of cool stuff you can do with the LRP and the risk management stuff nowadays.
I'm telling you.
And lock in that floor.
And just so people know that haven't used it, it is subsidized by the government where we don't have to pay up front the cost of that position. You pay for it afterwards, after you sell the cattle, after your contract's up, rather.
Yeah. And from my understanding of it, from some people I know, you can even retain ownership. So like they would get paid, they're going to, however you set it up, you're going to market it a certain date or whenever it is. Well, that's the market value then, and say it was below. So they get a check for that coverage. Well, they just keep the cattle and then market them later. And then
you can go from a feeder position to a live cattle position with those cattle. Yeah, you can turn them into a fat animal which is a whole nother contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they said so you have the opportunity to make money twice on the same thing.
You could. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So how did that work in your gap? You went to beef cattle, you did that, and then how's it evolved since then? You got into the Cowboy Channel, and now you've moved. So take us through your ranching through that whole area. I've got a huge giveaway going on right now for business owners. I've got a brand new 24-foot flatbed trailer from DX Trailer Sales, and I'm gonna give it away to a new credit card processing account. You've heard me talk a lot about it before, so not only will you get the savings, the service, and the upgraded equipment that we offer, but now you're gonna be entered to win this brand new flatbed trailer to help you in your business, or if you just wanna haul around your personal toys on it. So if you're a business owner that's already taking credit and debit cards for payments, click the link below and let's see what we can do and get you entered to win this new trailer.
I've always said that Northeast Oklahoma is the greatest, the best kept secret in all the ranching business because the amount of rainfall and the amount of grass you can grow is second to none. And
you barely feed hay up there, huh?
Oh no, you feed a lot of hay, but you make a lot of hay too. You make a lot of hay. It's hay is in an enormous abundance. It's just that much tonnage everywhere. Of course, for those that are listening out west, there's no irrigation, but you get 40-some inches of rain. That's timed out really well. There are a lot of cool season grasses. Fescue is a big part of ranching in southeast Kansas, northeast Oklahoma, and get over into Missouri. That's all it is. But that's cool season grass. And if you do things right, and you spray your weeds in the spring, you fertilize your fescue in August, September for those October rains, when that cool season grass goes to growing is in mid to late October, November. And then if you manage it right, which I had a combination of fescue and then to get me through the winter, and then native and Bermuda in the summertime. And so if you managed it right, and I didn't have enough to do that, but you could really pump the fertilizer to it in the fall. And yes, I guess you could not feed if you have that in your rotation. Mm-hmm. And I was just always too cheap to spend the fertilizer that I needed to get that done.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, that was the operation. And then I was buying stocker calves and feeding some cattle. The thing about being in the rodeo business and meeting all these people from everywhere, I always could find another place to lease. If I lost a cow pasture lease, I'd be on the phone until I found another place to put it. I've never not been able to rent something. Everybody says, there's leases are so hard to find. Not for me.
Yeah.
I love what Tucker Brown said, I think on your podcast one time. He said that his greatest, his net worth is his network. I think he got that from his dad, Donald Brown. And so that's me, man. My net worth is my network. Mm-hmm. And so I can always find a place. And so, yeah, places and partnerships was perfect for me. Not very many of them were profitable, but man, I was running cattle.
Yeah, in the business.
Man, I could have some up in the Flint Hills, and I could have some down in Texas, and I could fly in and look at them and feel like I was a real cattleman.
Yeah, that's
none of them would make any money.
But you're operating.
I was operating, living off that line of credit, baby.
Yeah, that's something that you gotta ask yourself. You want to be in the business, or do you want to be have a profitable business?
Yeah, it's very romantic. I was in some very romantic places in my cattle adventure.
I think that's part of the problem, is like we get tied up in the romanticism of wanting to be a cowboy or a rancher or whatever, and because it's just such a great way of life, but then we forget about the business and the profitability side of it.
The parallels are so similar between the romantic side of running cattle and how we are fascinated by that, and it's not reality. And religion is the same way. We get so caught up in the nostalgia in our religious experience that we forget what's reality. I don't know why I needed to read that. That's what I think about, though. The exact same parallel.
Yeah. You get this get kind of torn away from what reality is.
Yeah.
So moving, how did your operation change moving down here?
Oh man, never thought we'd sell that place, man. It was a dream. I just finished a set of pens, a set of working pens. Man, I had a middle alley with pens on both sides. I had outside alleys, all the 4 sides, an alley. Can you believe that? An alley on all 4 sides and one in the middle. I had a double barrel load going into my lead up, which was all hydraulic. Man, it was everything I'd ever dreamed of. I mean, I'd worked for years to come up with that plan.
Yeah.
Just when they got done, when Patrick Gott said, "Hey, won't you move down here?" So never my wildest dreams did I think we would sell that place, but we kept it, and we found a place in Hyco, which is an hour and a half out of Fort Worth. We moved down there, and then the guy that I was going to have continue our cattle operation there in northeast Oklahoma at 43 was in a car accident and passed away. So then we ended up selling it. By that time, we'd figured out that the Cowboy Channel was going to be long-term, and that we fell in love with Texas, and that we were okay moving away from home. And we found an incredible place that's eerily similar to our place in Oklahoma. I'm talking about it's set up the same. The driveway is to the foot the same length. The traps are the same, are cut out the same way, are fenced off exactly like Oklahoma. I mean, the tanks are in the same place. I'm not kidding you. Matter of fact, my wife and I, we were like praying, Lord, for us to move, you're going to have to send us a sign. We're going to have to know. I mean, like, we're going to have to know without a shadow of a doubt. So we showed up at this place that we saw online down at Hyco, and we pulled up. This place is 15 years old. The name of it is Double J Ranch. Well, my name's Justin. My wife's name is Jeannie. Both start with a J. It's the Double J Ranch. Are you kidding me? There's an M on the gate. My last name is McKee. Are you following me so far?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, God, for that sign. I wasn't going to miss that one.
So you saw it then. You weren't like, still looking for a sign.
Yeah. You know what's that story about that guy wanted to save from the flood? And so he climbed up on the roof, and God sent a helicopter and a boat. And he said, I'm waiting on God. I'm waiting on. He said, I sent you a helicopter and a boat. Yeah, not going to be that guy.
That was enough for you.
Yeah, that was it. We're all in. And it has been fabulous. And that community where we live is amazing. A lot of our friends have moved in. Luke Branquino, the steer wrestling world champion, lives across the valley. And Matt Tarr, one of my favorite rodeo clowns, is up the road. Tyler Crow, one of my best friends now. He's a very well-known artist you should have on this show, by the way. Mm-hmm. He's an amazing young man. And you know Tyler?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's just down the road, and then all of our neighbors they treat us like we grew up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does the ranching side look like down here now?
Oh yeah, finally get around to answering that question. We run about 60 cows there, but mainly it's just a place kind of keep my bulls. I've got a place in East Texas I've had for 15 years, and those cows set there year round. And another set of cows up by north of Lawton, Oklahoma, Fort Cobb. And then we take all the calves in September off all 3 places, and we'll commingle them eventually on wheat pasture as soon as we can, and then sell them off wheat. And that's why I bought my LRP for April, is we'll probably do that again.
So you're still pretty spread out.
Yeah, it was better than it was.
Yeah.
Way better than it was. I had like 6 or 8 different guys that had cows turned out for me for a while. I was running over 1,000 cows there in that 7 years in the desert.
Bad timing, huh?
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that'd be a lot to manage while you're working full time and doing other things and managing that side of it and all that.
Yeah, no, I got 2 great cow guys, and again, we Jake Leach, who you probably know about Wichita Falls, took in my wheat pasture cattle. He did a great job, and again, my rodeo contacts, Slick Robinson turned me on to Jake, and it's good to have good people and have lots of associates and lots of people that you can call. So
yeah, a guy I follow that really kind of got me into all this stuff just from his podcast and his content. But Brad Lee, and he says the more hands you shake, the more money you make.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah. So you maybe put that in, put your own spin on it, and say like I always said.
Yeah, I always said. I love that. Oh, I got to give a shout out to Audie Green over there in East Texas, and CJ and Christina Ferris up at Fort Cobb. Yeah, and Tuffy Hale. He been one of my best guys. He had cows with me for a lot of years, so I know a lot of people know those people.
Mm-hmm. So, and I want to transition into to your broadcast clinic. That's what I always seen you on TV and at the rodeos and stuff. But then I guess it was last fall or something like that, and I've been going pretty hard on social media and growing this channel and all that stuff. And so that world's kind of always intrigued me, learning more about that and going to events and taking courses and all that. Well, Hugh had a broadcasting clinic, and I was like, I didn't have any clue. I didn't know anything like that was out there. And I had no intentions of becoming a broadcaster, but I thought it might help me communicate and might meet somebody or something like that. I know I could get something out of it. And Tucker Brown had talked about it, and he said, same kind of deal. He's like, I didn't plan on doing anything, but I made a lot of good connections. I learned a lot. So I've been thinking about it ever since. And you don't have a whole lot, but you're scheduling it out, and now you're telling me before we started that you've got more things in the works of going more down that route. So kind of tell us how that got started, and then we'll get into where it's going. Yeah,
well, ever since I went to Bob Tallman's clinic, I knew that one day I wanted to do that, because I just love pouring into people. I love being a teacher if I can, a mentor if that's an opportunity. And so that's been a goal, is to give back into the next generation when I could. And Chad Nicholson was an announcer from California that had a seminar, kind of followed Bob's. And when Bob quit doing his, Chad started doing it. And out of respect for Chad, I didn't pursue it. But he tragically passed away at a young age, in his mid-50s here, 3 years ago. And I thought, man, I got the perfect place, Cowboy Channel. We got the studios. We got the stockyards. There's all kinds of cool things to do and places to eat. Could bring them down here. And so I just started working towards the first broadcast clinic. And last year I did 3. This year I've already done 2, so I've done 5 total. I take in 14 students. They've been packed every time. And we spend 3 days at the stockyards. We headquartered out of the Hyatt Stockyards Hotel. And we utilize different facilities, Billy Bob. Sometimes we meet in Billy Bob's. We kind of move it around, or sometimes we meet in the studio. And we get to do some on camera. My goal was to put the students in the hot seat like they're on Western Sports Roundup, like they're hosting. I put them on stage. We record it. We give them a countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I help them do all the homework leading up to this 2-minute highlight of a rodeo, and like they're on Western Sports Roundup. And it is such a great simulation. It's such a major league feel. They all feel like they are on TV. And it's just, I've stumbled onto a system that's unbelievable. I had a student that we got done. He said, that hot seat. He said, I have never felt adrenaline like that. I said, dude, you rode bulls. He said, I know. I said, he's a United States Marshal. I said, you're a Marshal. He said, yeah, I've been in gunfights. Nothing compares to that hot seat. That's where I can grow. I'm like, ooh. So now, instead of just kind of going through the mechanics of public speaking and announcing and broadcasting and marketing and storytelling, we're working towards a couple of things. This has evolved into what I'm going to have. This has evolved into a life development clinic because I'm less about rodeo announcing and how to become a great storyteller, how to max out your creativity, how to become a confident leader and speaker, and how to treat people, how to meet people, how to move around connections and utilize them. And I call it the troop. Now I've got a whole new direction I'm going that could go into the corporate world, it could go in the ag business world. I'm going to try some that are just open to the public, a day clinic instead of 3 days, and just focused on people's true potential based on their identity and based on their confidence and how to tap into a natural passion that I've discovered that has worked for me and is very unique to me, but it's so easy to understand, remember, and apply. And I'm not going to give away the whole seminar, but I'm telling anybody that goes to my broadcast clinic, they will tell you it's the 3 best days of their lives, because we look at things in such a narrow tunnel. We're just in a hallway a lot of times in our thinking. Mm-hmm. I want us to see 30,000 feet. I want us to see the impact that we're having can be and should be worldwide. At least that needs to be our thinking. We need to think about what we're doing. We need to understand if we are being a contributor or a consumer. We need to understand and recognize our selfishness and how that plays into lack of confidence and lack of passion. And it's the unselfishness that falls away where we can really untap that passion. But our position in life is very simple, but it's not taught or recognized hardly at all. And it's so simple. It's so easy. And I can't wait to share it with anybody who will listen. So out of that is a life development clinic. I'm calling them the True Potential Clinics that we're going to take to all over the country. That's going to be my next season in life. Keynote speaking, hopefully to ag groups, because that's who I can most easily relate to. But the people that are helping me put together are telling me, hey, look, it's the blue states who need to hear this message from a cowboy. And they would, there's a lot of places that would love, a lot of major blue state type corporations that need somebody like you, because they don't understand our culture. Mm-hmm. And you do a great job explaining who you are and what you believe and why you believe it. And so the storytelling aspect has been the beginning of my career, and I'm really kind of building this whole thing, this whole new season, this True Potential Clinic around storytelling and creating ambassadors, and for sales and marketing people to, I think I can untap and open up a whole new level of creativity that they never knew existed within them. Mm-hmm. And again, it's easy. And so looking forward to a lot of that in the future.
Yeah, there's so much there. I'm so glad it's evolving, because like that's what I saw. Yeah. I saw, like I said, I had no. I'm sure you started as a way to give back to people that wanted to be in broadcasting and rodeo announcers and stuff. Right. And I saw it, and I'm guessing that you had some students that came without the intentions of that. So you're like, there's something else here. And that's what I saw. And I was like, this is so much more. Like, I don't want to I want to be a better communicator
That's it.
for sales. Same deal for sales and marketing, and that type of stuff. And then see where that leads if you get better at that skill. And just that the whole thing you have planned is it sounds so cool, because I think like so many people. I'm involved in like I follow a lot and I study business and making money, sales and marketing, all that stuff. And to me, it seems like people get just stuck in a rut. Like you said, they're just thinking one way. What got me, or what really seemed like where I had some breakthroughs, was like just sitting around with nothing to do, sometimes with no money, and just getting creative. How can I go provide value to the world?
Yes.
And you're sitting there and you're thinking, and I scroll social media a lot and follow a lot of the right people and read books and all this stuff. So I'm always like, oh, I might could implement something like that. Maybe I could do a clinic, or maybe I could do a seminar, or maybe I could do a course. Like, what are these different things I could do in my creativity to provide value to somebody else? And in return, then you get value out of it also. So it's a lot of people never just sit down. They probably have the knowledge or the skills to really have an impact, but they don't know how to package it.
That's right.
Or tell the story, and market it. It's all kind of the same.
You got to have a why. You got to have a reason that you get up and go hard every day. And if we can untap that why, or make your why bigger than what you thought or could imagine, that why is what's going to get you to the next level. Mm-hmm. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. But the basics of it is just what you said. How do we add value to other people's life? That's the key to life. That's the purpose. And that's what we camp out on, is realizing how we were created and why, and then how we give what we have as gifts and pour it into other people. That's where life is. Mm-hmm. That's where you really start to live. And that's what we do. And our last clinic, we had 14 students. We had one rodeo announcer. The rest of them were there because they were people just like you that heard from somebody that had been before that said, you got to go. This changed everything. This changed the way I look at everything. And now I'm a better communicator. Now I got confidence, because if they can survive my hot seat, they can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I wanted to recreate it. I wanted to recreate my NBC Sports, my first television broadcast somehow. And I've been very successful in doing that by accident, but I'm certainly glad I was able to stumble onto it.
Yeah. And it's, I've found that getting in those uncomfortable situations make you grow.
That's
so
where you
much.
grow.
That's where, like, my first few times doing this, it was uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And then it's grown to where now it's easy. I mean, we're like a year and a half in, so it's like, this is normal. So at some point in there, after the first year maybe or something, I don't remember when I started it, but I was like, okay, I need to grow again. I got to do something else. So I was like, I'm going to do solo episodes. So that's a whole another skill set, to sit there talking to the camera without getting the feed off somebody, like we talked about before. So I've gotten a little bit better at that, and I'm honing that skill. And then I had one speaking engagement at a high school rodeo banquet, and that was another thing. Public speaking, like 5 years ago, was terrifying to me.
Oh, wow.
But I knew I needed to push, so I did that. It wasn't that bad. So it's always looking for something. And you got me all fired up. You're a great salesman for it, because you got me all fired up. I want to be a part of it.
I am. It's easy. It's so easy to sell this thing, because it is so powerful. And I know what it does for me. I know it works because I know what it does for me every time. A lot of times, I'm hearing the stuff for the first time too, which I think is cool. But that fear you talk about, man, that's what we can get rid of. Mm-hmm. There's no place for that. And here's the thing: whether it's been fear from people in agriculture not getting up to tell our story, or whether it's because we just keep our head down and we're working all the time, we have not been telling our story in agriculture. And that's what I spend a lot of time on in my keynote addresses, is to I want agriculture to wake up to the opportunity that is before us right now. And that is that the rest of the world, for the first time in my lifetime, they want to know about us. They want to learn about our operations. They want to see where we live. They want to meet our families. And we have a great opportunity if we understand how to tell a story. And not just tell a story, but the power of visuals, great visuals. Well, we're very fortunate, and we don't even realize it, but all of us in agriculture live in the land of amazing visuals. But we were brought up in it. We take it for granted. We don't realize how amazing living in the country is and how fascinating it is to the rest of the world. And now they want to know where their food comes from. This next era, this next generation of agriculture people have got to have storytellers, because we've let the enemy tell our story for the last 50 or 75 years. Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to stand up against. That's the people I want to wake up. That's, as I go to the keynote addresses, that's what I want to do. I want to raise up a new generation of storytellers that will get the story right. Mm-hmm. And it's going to change. It's already changing. Yeah. And that's why I love Tucker Brown. It's one of my greatest inspirations, seeing what he's doing as an ambassador out there on social media, being the influencer of the year, the NCBA, and people that have come on and followed him, and then other people like yourself that are telling this story.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I can't wait to see what agriculture is going to look like in the next 25 years.
Yeah, I mean, they're in any aspect, they're talking about, there's a story being told about you, through rumors and, we all know like rumors generally are wrong, so in agriculture, just you as a person, whatever it is, there's other people talking about you. But if you get out there and you can get in front of it, you're telling the story.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's what it's hard to just talk about Trump for a minute. It's hard for a whole lot of scandal and stuff to come out about him because he's so vocal, telling his own story. He's tweeting all the time and in front of the camera, and you just see him so much. He kind of stays ahead of most of those things. Whereas like you just let somebody else tell a story and you never come out there, you never tell your own. Nobody ever sees it. Maybe you do tell it, but you just tell it to your friend group or whatever. Nobody knows. So you're letting somebody else control your narrative over here.
Well, we are, and we need to break down some walls, because you and I were raised in a culture that is not supposed to boast. We're not supposed to talk about ourselves. We were raised in a spirit of humility, and we got to break that wall down. I mean, I'm respectful for all of those qualities, and it is a big part of me, but we can be both. Mm-hmm. We can do it in a very respectful way, in a very tasteful way, where we can tell our story, and we're not bragging, but somebody got to step up and do it. But I think, and this is something I'll teach in the clinics, we got to recognize where our enemies are. All those scary things that jump out at us and keep us from reaching our true potential. We've got to recognize what they are and why they exist and how we empower those. And once we recognize the enemy, that's the first and biggest step towards reaching our true potential. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that we are a little too timid in storytelling might be one of the things that'll kick somebody into gear.
Yeah. I mean, just like I was talking about earlier about the charismatic, like Hermosi, like any of those qualities, you break those down. Don't just say, go tell a story. Like, what is it? What do we need to tell? Who are we trying to tell it to?
Right.
Who are we trying to affect? And once you break down the steps and you see a plan, to me, and I think to a lot of people, it's not as daunting of a task.
It's still daunting to me in a way. Especially when you consider that we need to keep putting content out on a weekly or sometimes a daily basis to stay relevant in social media. I'm still struggling with that. But I've got to reprogram my mind that's been programmed backwards for 50 years. And so again, recognizing that is going to get me where even I want to be. And so I think if I can do it, then it's possible for anybody.
Yeah.
I'm an old soul, man. I'm an old soul.
Well, I think most cowboys, their dream is like you wanted to do, is just go back to the ranch and not jack with people besides horses and cattle.
I know.
And dogs. But it is fun having these conversations with high-level people and getting to educate and getting the good feedback and all that stuff.
I love this. I'm inspired, and I love your podcast. And by the way, you're doing a great job when you're single and you're doing your motivation talks on. I've been a fan of yours for a while, and I've been following you for over a year. And I love the business side. I'm always learning something from the people you bring in and your insight. And I know we're going to work together on some other stuff. And so you're a great example of where we need to be in agriculture.
I appreciate it.
You betcha.
What are you listening to when you're traveling around? And are you a Audible or podcast guy, or music, no radio? What's that look like?
Man, I'm 100% podcast guy. Well, let me take that back. I spend half of my time talking to my people. I've got several groups that I need to stay connected to. My rodeo committees I work for, my students that I want to stay in touch with, my men, my guys. I'm on a Bible study call every Wednesday for the last 4 years, a Zoom call. There's 90 guys, high-profile guys, a lot of people that you would know, and just a lot of movers and shakers. I tell people we're a bunch of guys that failed the church system, but we want to do something big in the kingdom of God. It was just we don't really fit into that model very good because we're a bunch of men, imperfect men, and that's been very powerful. But I spent a lot of time. We just finished a rodeo Bible camp out in Weatherford this last week, and we have some big vision for men. We feel like the church has kind of forgotten men, real men in the church, and we're working towards maybe being a voice in changing that in America. And so I spend a lot of time in contact with my people, that being a big part of it. And then the other half is podcast. And so there's a lot of Western sports podcast out there, which I need to stay on top of. Mm-hmm. And so I listen to it. And I know all the people that have these podcasts are dear friends of mine. So there's several reasons I want to listen to them. The non-rodeo people that I listen to Chad Prather a lot. I don't want very much politics, but just enough. I just need enough to know kind of the stuff I really need to know. Mm-hmm. And he's very entertaining. And then he does. He has a spiritual deal every week too. He's made a big turnaround, and I like what he's talking about, especially concerning men and spirituality. And he's kind of connecting the dots there that have been left wide open. So that's kind of who I listen to.
Yeah. What about books?
Man, I'm not a great reader, but I have read a lot of books. For it to stick, though, I've got to read that same book like every week. I went through a season when I went home to the ranch. God told me I was supposed to start a cowboy church in our little community there, which I did not see coming, and nor did I want to do. But I did, and so I guess I became a pastor. And I tell people that was my 7 years in the desert, and I read a lot. And I read every day, and I had to learn a lot in a short amount of time, and I was responsible to feed a lot of people, and so I kind of got burnt out on reading that then. But right now, I'm reading books that are basically built around masculinity and how that has become kind of a bad word in our society today, and how it is one of the most important assets that we have, and how people like you and I need to not let that go away. And I think there's a podcast called Undaunted that I've listened to. Can't think of the guy's name up in Oklahoma that has done a great job. There's a lot of special ops guys that are doing it. Dale Brisby's doing a great job in that area as well. And so as my men's group are working towards the value that we're going to add in the future is going to be reminding men that masculinity is how we were created, and that used properly is, again, one of our greatest assets. So that's what I'm reading on here lately.
Yeah. What's your favorite rodeo to go to?
Man, I can't say that because I got too many places I've been going to for 25 years, and they're like my hometown.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say they're all unique. The political answer is that Cheyenne, I announced there for 15 years and roped there, and Pendleton, those two places, because of steer roping, have always been the favorites among my people, my circle of people in the steer roping world. And I got to announce both of them, and I was very successful in the roping at both of those events. And so those are my two favorites. Ellensburg is the most awesome town. Ellensburg, Washington, in the Kittitas Valley. I know more people there than I do in any of the towns I've been to because I stay at the West Star Ranch with Scott and Joe Rep, and I have for 20 years. And so through them, I've been able to really connect deeply within the community. And for the last several years, I go in a week early and I stay a week late. So Ellensburg, during Labor Day, I'll spend sometimes 2.5, 3 weeks there. It is my second home, that community, I will say. St. Paul, Oregon is the littlest town in America with a ginormous rodeo over the 4th of July. I'll be going there in a couple of weeks. And it is the most pristine, beautiful agriculture properties I've ever seen. They grow a lot of floral, a lot of landscaping. They grow a lot of nuts and fruit and mint, and it's spectacular. South of Portland in the Willamette Valley, and it's very unique, and it's a wonderful small town. So I've got some great places.
Yeah. So those are all, of course, I know the big ones, and then I mean they sound awesome. I want to go. We've been to Cheyenne, but not when the rodeo was going on. We went and walked through the museum and all that, and been to Pendleton, but not when the rodeo was going on. So
it's indescribable. Mm-hmm. Those rodeos are indescribable. The experience is always grander and greater than anybody could ever imagine. Nobody's ever disappointed, and I want to encourage everybody to go, make it happen. I've been going to both places for 25 years, and every day it's like the first day. Every day there's something new. Every day there's something exciting, especially on the grass at Pendleton, especially when you're out there setting as a contestant on the grass, perhaps getting run over, potentially. You're in the middle of the fray from time to time. And then for where I am today, being able to go to those places and tell those stories and show the color, it's the best job in the world.
Yeah. What would your advice be to someone wanting to grow to the next level in life, in business, faith? I mean, I think all that stuff kind of really relates. Just kind of growing in themselves.
Go to justinmckeenow.com and figure out whether you want to come to a broadcast clinic, a true potential clinic, or if you want to have me as a keynote speaker. That's what you need to do. We're just still kind of working on our website there, but I can't wait to start building assets there around that website and to get some of the things that have been a great help to me in their hands. I tell you a great starting point. The most major starting point or restarting point, the best reset for me was reading The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. That book rocked me, and that's the foundation of a lot of who I am today. I'll never forget the day that I recognized how selfish I was in all these different areas. And again, recognizing the enemy is the first and biggest step. And that was huge. So I think everybody needs to read that book, and I need to read it again.
Yeah, I like to go back and I feel like I'm so far behind. I I'm always consuming new content, but I'm like, I got to slow down, go back and read these old books that I've already read because they're so impactful, every so often, like the foundational stuff of business and stuff. I mean, in life, I like the 4 Agreements. It's a good little short book, Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil. I like to just go back and revisit those while also still consuming. There's so many, I mainly do audibles because I'm in the truck a lot or in the gym, and they pop up suggested for you or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I want this one. Or like even if I go in a bookstore, there's a used bookstore over here down the road, and I was killing time in between podcasts. I went in there and I had a whole stack of books, and I was like, oh man,
I'm the same way. I'm good at gathering them up. I'm not good at finishing any of them. I'm the same way.
I've still got a bunch on the bookshelf I haven't gone through, but I was like, I got to put some of these back. I've got like a couple $100 worth of books here. So, it's going back and revisiting that stuff is very impactful because you're gonna forget. So, and then I always wrap up with the easy question: what's your favorite place to eat?
Oh man, that's one of the main things I have loved about moving to Texas and working out of the Fort Worth area. The stockyards are not a bad place to eat. I mean, I got the perfect job and the perfect restaurants around my job. I love the Drover. I love going to is it Palomas, the Mexican place there at the stockyards?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah. Right on the creek. Age 3, the Brand Room. Oh, and then the Midland Hotel, the Chop House in Hico.
Oh, yeah.
What a deal in our little town.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best restaurants in the world. We've got like 5 Mexican restaurants in a population of 1,200. It's a big deal for me to have a hometown. I was always I lived in a very, very, very small town, population 400 when I was a kid. And so to have a bigger sized town with some actual choices and places to eat is a big deal for me. So Hico is perfect.
Yeah, it's really grown. It's very cool.
That's a big deal for me to go to our little town and go to that steakhouse, and they've done a magnificent job restoring those 1880 and 90 buildings. They're fabulous, and daycation hotspot for Fort Worth. So there's just a lot of shopping and stuff in our little town. And so those are. I want to go to the meat board. Greg Kimmel, my buddy there. And
heard of that.
Yeah. Have you not been either?
Mm-mm.
Oh, maybe we should go together.
Yeah.
In Fort Worth. Of course, I love the Riata. It's a long list.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. You get into Fort Worth, there's so many options.
There is. I love that. Before we quit, The Wild at Heart is one of the greatest books by John Eldridge.
Yeah.
Wild at Heart for men. That is life-changing there. So
I got that for Christmas, I think maybe 2 years ago on maybe it was last year, I don't remember, but I remember I talked about it when I was interviewing Dale. I just read it not that long before, and yeah, it was really good. There's another good men's book is The Comfort Crisis.
Oh, interesting.
And talks about how comfortable we are, and then he goes on it. It's kind of tied to hunting. He goes hunting in the mountains. I think they were after elk, and he's just talking about how tough these hunter guys are, and he's like, how comfortable are we to go from air conditioner to air conditioner and heater to heater and have all these things that we don't. And he talks about the luxuries that become necessities, and
yeah,
it's pretty good too. It'd be kind of similar to Wild at Heart.
Mm-hmm.
But as we wrap up, how can people get a hold of you? Where can they follow you and keep up with you and check out your new clinics and all that coming up? Well,
you can go to justinmckeenow.com and you can message me personally on Facebook and or Instagram. And so just encourage anybody to reach out that's even remotely interested. So give us a little grace on the website. We're still kind of working that out, still in the baby stages there.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on and sharing all of it with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I look
honored to be here.
Maybe we'll have you back or do something, kind of keep everybody updated. You got a lot of stuff in the works, so.
Yeah, we're going to do some stuff. I have a feeling that we're going to have several conversations in the next future.
Awesome. Well, y'all go check out Justin. If you're interested in it at all, go check out his website. Check out the broadcasting clinic, these other clinics coming up, and keep up with all that. And of course, check them out on the Cowboy Channel. And we will see y'all next time. A mastermind has the sole purpose of getting you further, faster, and that's exactly what we're doing with the Wealthy Cowboy Show Mastermind. It is for the person that's ready to start out building their business or someone just looking to get their business to the next level. We will have live Q&A calls that you can ask past and future guests questions that relate specifically to you. You'll also hear ideas and be able to network with people that could open you up to a completely different way of thinking that could change your life. Click the link below if you're looking to go to the next level in business and in life.